Okay, hi guys. My name is Kimberly Dixon, and I'm a worldwide go-to-market security specialist with AWS Web Services. So for those of you who were coming for detection and response, we will be covering this. But what this actually is, it's an embargo secret session for the first preview for partners on our new AWS Security Hub service that we announced today during the keynote. So you'll get to see these capabilities, you'll get to see why we built AWS Security Hub, you'll get to understand the use cases and the capabilities within the feature itself, and you'll also learn about how you can integrate as partners to the new AWS Security Hub service and how you can consume the findings from AWS Security Hub if you're a partner such as a security analytics partner or an ISV that's able to take in these findings in OCSF. So why did we start building AWS Security Hub, and what were we actually trying to fix? One of the key things we looked at was the fragmented visibility. So one of the things that customers tell us all the time is that our detection and response services come in building blocks. And this was something in the first step that we are looking at creating a comprehensive, unified solution that helps with that visibility. Next, we focus on the limited context for security issues within our customers' environments. So on AWS at the moment, we look at all of our security findings in a very unique sort of way. So Guard Duty has unique security findings, Security Hub is unique security findings. What about thinking about the way we could correlate this so that not only will you get these findings, but you get the additional context of this as well? One example is if I have an EC2 instance and that EC2 instance has vulnerabilities on it, that's a great finding, right? I can see that this vulnerability is something that I must fix. But the additional context could come from the fact that this EC2 instance might have an instance profile with an IAM role and a policy that's providing me administrative access. And that administrative access might also be providing me access to an S3 bucket that has PI information. Not only that, this EC2 instance might also have a network reachable path out to the internet. And what that means is that now we're looking at these toxic combinations of vulnerabilities, of misconfigurations, of IAM threats, and of sensitive data. And that's what we were talking about when it comes to context, when we're looking at our critical security risks. That also leads to the disconnected signals and the delayed responses to critical incidents as well. So all of these were the challenges that we were helping our customers fix when it comes to the new AWS Security Hub service. So like I said, this is what we're hoping for. Fragmented security with multiple tools, moving towards a unified solution. Manual analysis coming up with automated correlation, being provided to you from the AWS Security Hub service. The limited context that you might potentially get from native services at the moment with enriched insights. And lastly, delayed response times, maybe because you have to try and make sense of your findings and try to think about how you can stitch these analytics together into streamlined response processes. So the integrated security solution is our AWS Security Hub services. So this is a new enhanced AWS Security Hub solution. Firstly, we're taking in all the threats from Amazon Guard Duty, the vulnerabilities from Inspector, the controls and configurations from Security Hub CSPM, the network exposures that we get from the automated reasoning network reachability findings, as well as sensitive data from AC. All of this put together, providing these additional insights of actionable insights, correlation, risk prioritization, allows you to actually use the AWS Security Hub service. The key benefits that we see, and this is what we're striving for our customers, is a unified security operations, allowing you to actually confidently prioritize the findings. So understanding that a critical isolated finding is not the same as a critical finding that shows you these toxic combinations. So really adding to that confident prioritization. And as I said earlier, the streamlined response as well. So what happens to the old Security Hub CSPM service? So if you're a partner, you're probably sending findings through into AWS Security Hub today, into ASSF, and maybe having Security Hub show you these findings. That continues and that stays. But what is the delta? So what have we added on top of the AWS Security Hub CSPM service? So CSPM service does the security findings aggregation from the partner findings or our AWS native solutions, and adds on that cloud security posture management that looks at our configurations against things such as the NIST 853, CIS benchmarks, etc. The new AWS Security Hub takes the functionalities of the AWS Security Hub CSPM service and adds on that automated correlation layer, the risk prioritization, as well as the streamlined response. So this is what you're going to be seeing in the next few slides. I've got screenshots showing you what the console actually looks like, but these are actually the features that exist within the unified console of the new AWS Security Hub service. We're going to provide you those exposure findings, so that toxic combination that I spoke about earlier, the ability to see an EC2 instance with a CVE with an assumable IAM role to an S3 bucket with sensitive data. We call that exposure findings, and it's a completely new finding type, the same way that when GuardDuty released attack sequence findings, it was a completely new finding type. We're going to provide you an attack path analysis, and that looks at the network topology. What are the resources that is within my network that leads to that EC2 instance with that vulnerability. We're going to provide you an asset inventory, and that's a real-time asset inventory, and the ability for you to search, for example, across all of my EC2 instances in my AWS organization, which of these have findings, which of these are public reachable, and really providing you with that resource-based view of the findings within Security Hub. In terms of triage and alerting, all of this is available in the Open Cybersecurity Schema framework. And for those of you who are not familiar with the OCSF, that is an open schema. It's a standardized data format that we've worked with multiple partners to make sure that the schema is the same when it comes to your security findings. So all of this is available in OCSF, and OCSF is basically what's underwriting the Security Hub findings. You can also still take in findings via EventBridge. So if that's the way that you are currently consuming AWS Security Hub findings or our Amazon GuardDuty findings, you can still continue to take that through via EventBridge. But now we also provide automated ticketed workflows to Jira Cloud as well as ServiceNow, meaning now that you can actually cut tickets or create tickets from our AWS Security Hub findings and put them into your integrated ticketing workflows. All right, so starting with the key capabilities, this is the unified console of the AWS Security Hub service. On the left-hand side, you can see the threat summaries that come from Amazon GuardDuty, the exposure summary findings, which I said earlier was a combination of our Amazon Inspector and our AWS Security Hub CSPM services. The resource summary view, so as you can see here, I have an S3 bucket, and I can see for this particular S3 bucket whether or not we have any exposure findings, attack sequence findings, as well as other findings. And lastly, a security coverage view. So security coverage view is extremely powerful because you're able to see within the security coverage view which of my AWS accounts have Amazon Inspector turned on, which of my accounts have Amazon GuardDuty turned on across my environment. So giving you that comprehensive coverage of which solutions are actually turned on within your AWS environment. So the greatest thing about this is that you have all of our security findings within one console, and you don't have to toggle out of this console. So you'd have to go back from GuardDuty into Security Hub CSPM or into Macie. They're all combined into one unified console. The next thing is an example of an exposure findings that's available within the Security Hub dashboard itself. And that exposure findings were those toxic combinations that I spoke about earlier. So with the overview side, you can actually see the accounts, for example. You can see the contributing traits. So traits are essentially the signals that we have pieced together to actually raise this particular exposure finding. Examples of traits would be things such as reachability, so whether or not that particular EC2 instance is reachable via the internet. It is a vulnerability finding that comes from Amazon Inspector, a misconfiguration type finding that comes from Security Hub CSPM. We have two others, which is sensitive data, and assumability, which is an IAM role that could actually be compromised. We have a potential network attack path, and like I said earlier, that shows you the network topology of that particular resource and where that sits. You can't see too clearly on screen, but you can actually see that the EC2 instance, I can actually see if it's part of a subnet, which VPC it's in, whether or not there is a network ACL, whether or not it's protected by ALB, all the way through into Internet Gateway. And all of this is traced through and overlaid in terms of the traits that you can see from AWS Security Hub. So the reachability, sensitive data, vulnerability, misconfiguration, assumability. You can also see that I can also have an IAM role here that has access to an EC2 instance as well. So all of this is combined so that we can actually see the potential attack path and what might be happening within your environment. Next, this is just a bigger view of what I showed you earlier. But again, you can pivot and dive slightly deeper to look at that attack path and explore each of these contributing traits on top of these Security Hub findings as well. So all of this just allows you to actually prioritize remediation based on that attack path risk, and helps you protect your resources more critically. The next thing we're also providing is a security-focused resource inventory, which allows you to see things such as, for my EC2 instances, which ones are publicly reachable, for example, which ones of them has security findings. At public preview, you will be able to see this resource-based view across your organization, but at a very fast follow, we're going to be providing a real-time SBOM view for all software dependencies that are actually attached or deployed on your EC2 instances as well. And lastly, in terms of streamlined response, we have built-in native integration with ticketing tools, such as Jira Cloud, as well as ServiceNow. And the idea of this is really for us to actually allow you to use these security findings and take them through and integrate them into your ticketing workflows that you already have and that exist in your environment today. So Security Hub has all of these native capabilities, as you can see earlier. But the current AWS Security Hub CSPM is not going away. It's just going to be a capability of the AWS Security Hub service. So if you are still using AWS Security Hub within your environment, or you're a partner and you're sending findings through into AWS Security Hub CSPM, you can continue to do so. The Security Hub CSPM service is not going away, but instead becoming a capability of the AWS Security Hub service. So as a partner, how would you be able to integrate with the new AWS Security Hub? Security Hub, as I mentioned earlier, is completely written on the OCSF, which is the Open Cybersecurity Schema Framework. It uses that OCSF schema framework to allow for data standardization and to future-proof our services as we'll look for integrations with our AWS Security Hub service. For security analytics partners, the way that you would integrate with AWS Security Hub is for you to be able to take in the OCSF findings through into your security tools. If you are a GSI partner or an SI partner or an MSSP, the idea is for you to actually be able to look at using AWS Security Hub to actually help with your customers and to give you that additional prioritization and correlation so that you're able to help your customers with their security findings. So these are the two main ways that we see customers, partners currently integrating with the AWS Security Hub service. Okay, so just to be very clear, these are the new features that we're getting from the AWS Security Hub service, but AWS Security Hub CSPM continues to exist. How do we actually see customers using Security Hub? Once again, unifying their cloud security operations, allowing them to prioritize and investigate critical risks, monitor their cloud security posture, as well as to respond at scale. Okay, and that's it from me. I can open the floor for any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.